Hello, and welcome to today's episode. If you've already heard the introduction before, then just skip ahead about 5 minutes. Otherwise, the Bible is referred to as the living Word of God. It isn't a book that is meant simply to be read. It is a perspective-altering substance that is meant to be ingested and absorbed into you. And when it becomes a part of you, it changes you. And that is exactly what it is meant to do. A psalm is a spiritual song based on real-life experiences that reveal a profound foundational insight that is then expressed in the form of music, which is usually played on a harp. This is my own paraphrase of the Psalms. Now, there is an important difference between a paraphrase and a translation, and it is important to understand what that difference is. A translation takes a text word by word, and it finds the most accurate word in another language to convey the meaning of that original word. But sometimes getting the details right can come at the expense of the big picture. For example, the literal translation for a butt dial and the literal translation for a booty call could end up being exactly the same if they were both translated very literally into another language. But we all know that those are two very different ideas. A paraphrase, on the other hand, is attempting to capture the spirit of the idea that is being expressed. But both approaches come with their own disadvantages. Sometimes the most literal translation for each word, while technically still accurate, also loses something in its translation. For example, if you were to translate the phrase, "cat got your tongue," into another language, it would probably make no sense to them. Why would a cat grab your tongue? What are you even talking about? In order to convey the original idea, you would have to find out which saying is used in that other language to express the same concept. But it might not involve a cat, or even any animal at all. So the literal translation would not be a very accurate one. But in a case like the one that I just described, the idea is more important than sticking to a very literal translation that ends up losing all of its intended meaning. However, because paraphrases are an individual's interpretation of the underlying idea instead of a rigorous academic translation of the word, they are not as objectively accurate as a translation is. A paraphrase is a lot more subjective, and that makes it much more susceptible to interpretations that are way off the mark of the original text's intent. The focus of a translation is on detailed accuracy, and sometimes the broader picture is not conveyed very clearly as a result. The focus of a paraphrase is on painting that big picture, but it often loses the accuracy of the finer details. Both are useful as long as you understand which is which, and what the disadvantages to each approach are. And that is why I recommend using both an accurate translation, like the New American Standard, and a responsible paraphrase. For my part, I've done my best to create a hybrid paraphrase that also contains the truest translation that I could create for the Hebrew words that are found in the original text. But everything loses something in translation. Every word is an amalgamation of several other words. That is basically what a dictionary is. It tells you which words overlap with the word that you are interested in, and that helps you to fully understand its context. When it comes to a language that you are familiar with, all of the implied connections that are associated with a word are inherently carried along for context. They are tethered to its meaning, and we all understand that those connections are part of the picture. But this web of context does not come along for the ride when you are dealing with an unfamiliar language. So in a translation, you often have to choose between picking a word that overlaps more than any other single word would, while sacrificing the rest of the picture, or you end up with an extremely wordy translation that doesn't flow as well as it does in the original language. And Hebrew especially is such an abundantly rich language that to remain true to the beautiful web of context that is contained in the original biblical portrait, you end up with a very wordy English version. That trade-off is clearly not for everyone. But the truth is that there are already so many paraphrases out there for the people who want the maximally filtered, ultra-boiled down, heavily concentrated version of the Bible. And I'm not denying that concise simplicity has its utility. It certainly does. So if that is all that you are looking for right now, then there are already several versions out there to suit your preferred purpose. For the other people who want a deeper dive and a wider perspective to draw from as they try to understand the scriptures fully, some amount of crisp, flowing directness will have to be sacrificed in exchange for the opportunity to view that broader and more complicated web of context. But hopefully, these attempts to contribute an additional tool to the versions of the Holy Scriptures that already exist will only add another dimension to the way that you experience faith. Psalm 131, a song of ascents by David. Ascents refers to the steps for going up to Jerusalem on the journey to participate in sacred festivals. Ascents, steps, or degrees is a reference to the physical ascent into Jerusalem, and specifically, it refers to the climb up to the temple. So these psalms were likely sung by the pilgrims who were traveling to Jerusalem. Yahweh, the existing of all existence, my heart, the place where my thoughts, emotions, inclinations, and conscience blend to form my will, is not puffed up with the kind of self-impressed pride that elevates itself to a position up in the heights. In forming my perceptions, my views are not tainted with conceit. So I don't look down on others or see myself as being the all-important pinnacle, fantasizing grandiose delusions about who I am and what immense destinies my own abilities actually merit. Nor do I chase ambitions that are actually too important, too immense, and too intense for me to handle. And I do not meddle in impressively difficult matters in order to feign undue importance, or involve myself in incomprehensibly complex mysteries that are far beyond me and the capacity of my actual skills, things that I do not actually understand. Actually, I have cultivated a still, level existence throughout my entire being, down to its core spark of animating life. Like a toddler that has been weaned from the infantile craving for its mother's milk that formerly possessed and ruled it, and that weaned child has now been rewarded with a new maturity that is less demanding and less dependent on these external sources to find its own comfort. And that serene child trusts in the comfort of just being held by its mother. My entire being is like that contented and entirely untroubled child held in my innermost core. So Israel, likewise, with long-term anticipation, as you wait out the night in the knowledge that the dawn will come, place your enduring reliance in Yahweh, starting right now and continuing to do so from now on, extending beyond the horizon of time. I pray that whatever voice God might choose to give me in this world, He would also give me the words that I should use it for. These words have meaning for me. And if they had some meaning for you as well, then I am truly grateful that we have both been given a gift from above and from each other. Have a good day out there, my friends.